Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill. Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with Brady Bryan, the CEO of Brain Consulting. And in today's episode, Brady and I are going to talk about taxes and what has changed these last couple of years, and also what credits might be available to you and your company today and how to take advantage of those. So thank you for joining us on the show today, Brady. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. I'm Brady. I'm the CEO of Brain Consulting, LLC. We're a specialty tax incentive consulting company comprised of about 50 tax experts, attorneys, engineers, building science folks, accountants, and the like. And we primarily focus on the architecture, engineering, construction community. So you may have seen us around at CFMA or what have you, but in a nutshell, we focus on the AEC industry and help them get specialty tax incentives and go from there. So Mike, you're at the tug today. How's everything there? How's it seeing everybody in person?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, I'm in Washington, D.C. today. So from the hotel room here, we're recording this episode. Just, enjoying another awesome event. This is the user group. It's a Sage community here, their annual user conference. It's always a great event that we look forward to. I think this is my 18th straight year at this event. So I've been coming here a long time, and it's always good to connect with folks, customers, and prospects, as you well know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Brady, it's interesting. You and I met at another conference, the Agera conference in Dallas, Texas area recently. And so you and I connected there and felt like maybe there was a good conversation to be had here and share it with our listeners. So I really do appreciate you joining me. And I know you like these events as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some coming up. I mean, every month, there's a lot that have just kind of said, oh, we've been on pause for 2 years. We're going to do it. And it seems like it reminds me of a bunch of people trying to get out the doorway at the same time. We love architects, engineers, contractors of all sizes as well. As you know, at Agera, it's typically as far as number of employees, it's usually smaller. The higher number of employees are usually using at A&E firms, Vision or Vantage Point or something like that. And it's interesting where we find ourselves there is helping a lot on not only helping them get the tax credits, but really harnessing the data that they already have. And so our folks have really become data ninjas in many respects and help. Actually, we have folks that are experts in that, and we can actually dig into the time tracking and the data and the projects that are already available there in the system. And we do the same thing with contractors or subcontractor clients that use the information as much as they do. So my thought is, why reinvent the wheel when you have a lot of that information there that you can just dig into and use it as a starting point?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think there is a lot of data available, but yeah, companies just don't have the direction or know how to use it. So today, what do you feel like has really changed on the tax landscape and what applies to contractors?
Yeah, so contractors in general, they are a sweet spot or a target-rich environment, so to speak. We've got the second Top Gun about to launch, so I'll use that terminology. These folks are target-rich for not only the R&D tax credit, the design tax credit, as some would call it, and I think that's probably the most appropriate name for it. And then you've got 179D as well. So 179D is the energy efficient commercial building deduction. So if you're a general or a specialty sub like a mechanical or electrical, doing work on government buildings, you may be eligible for this incentive, and it's up to $1.80 per square foot. There is what's new on this is that there is a cost of living change. So projects completed in 2022 and beyond could be eligible for $1.82, and so on and so forth down the line per square foot. And so the 179D, it's a big thing. So for any government-owned project, whether it's schools, that's a very common one, county, city, state, agency, federal, correctional, any of those, you could be eligible for up to $1.80 or $1.82 per square foot, and go from there. And there are some legislative proposals out there to only increase it. And so 179D is now permanent, like the R&D tax credit is permanent. 179D is now permanent, and the only thing that we're seeing in the pipeline is or are calls to expand it. So it's a really big deal. It's very helpful, and we have quite a few general contractors, quite a few specialty subs, mechanical and electrical subs that take advantage of this.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's a fair number of companies that are aware of these things out there, but I definitely know that it's not all of them. Obviously, you guys do a good job to try and identify that. But what does it look like for somebody to really get their hands wrapped around what the opportunities and the options are? I mean, how do you engage with them, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so we always provide a free phase one analysis. We want to do more than kick the tires. We want to look under the hood. So, for example, for 179D, we want to take a look at all the projects, and we can go back in time too. So we can go back. Typically, it depends on when they filed and what kind of, are they a calendar year in or fiscal year in taxpayer. For example, if it's a calendar year in and they didn't file until 9/15 in 2019 for their 2018 return, we could go back and look at the tax year 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So we got 4 years that we could look at. And so we would say, hey, let's look at all projects that have been completed in those years. And we could look at projects also, because it's permanent, we can look at projects where they've started the project or at least signed the agreement on that they have in the pipeline too. So we don't have to wait and always look retroactively. We can look at projects they have under management right now.
Oh, that's good to know. And I know with a lot of these things, timing is of the essence. So what parameters do they need to be aware of, and how do they make sure that they keep a finger on this before they lose opportunity?
Timing is of the essence, and that I love the way you put it. At the end of the day, so 179D, as you can imagine, if you're an accountant out there, or even if you're not, you may remember something from your CPA. It has something to do with depreciation, and you're right to think it's in that same area in the tax code. And so you think, okay, depreciation. So if you are a building owner and you've developed your own building and it's an energy efficient building, it could be eligible for this deduction, and you get to deduct up to $1.80 per square foot, subject to the cost of the construction in year one. Well, the government is not a taxpayer, and so they can allocate that to a private party that helped design these energy efficient systems. The energy efficient systems being the envelope of the building, the interior lighting, as well as the mechanical conditioning of the building. And for example, the HVAC system, the boiler unit, geothermal, those kinds of things. So they can allocate that to you. And that's where the time of the essence really comes in. And I really love the way you put that, because at the end of the day, it is kind of a race to the courthouse, because there is an agreement that you'll need to do. We handle on your behalf. And then some jurisdictions, depending on where you were, where you are, they have their own language and form to use as well. And we'll go through and find that. But at the end of the day, we as a taxpayer need the government to allocate to us that deduction. And so that's really where that comes in.
Got it. So you mentioned there are a few things that have changed. Obviously, the rate increase in some areas. What do you see coming down the pipe in 2023? Is there anything that companies should plan on if maybe they've already filed for this last year, if they didn't extend? What should they be looking for coming down the pipe?
Well, number one, they can go back and amend for this deduction, and it's usually worthwhile. So we can come through and do a full phase one analysis and show you the estimated deductions by year, and really go from there. And so once a client engages us, we'll go through and see, number one, has it already been allocated? Have the architects received it? Have the engineers received it? And if not, who all is eligible for it. So an electrical contractor, for example, they may be eligible for between 30 and 60 cents per square foot. And in some cases, maybe even more than that, maybe $1.20 to $1.80, depending. And so we can take a look at all that. And then we go further, we model, we do the site visit, and all of this takes a little while. And so we can do this work up front and show the client, hey, here's your estimated deductions. It's worth it on these. Let us go see if we can get the allocation letter. The allocation letter, that time is of the essence issue is the most critical path to getting the deductions here.
That's interesting. I think it's also interesting to me. I think there can be a perspective at times that companies say, or individuals, hey, I don't really like getting involved in these government programs, or I don't want to take advantage of anything, or I don't operate that way, I don't need them. I mean, what would you say to an individual or a company that has that attitude or approach to these types of things, and maybe what they're missing out on?
That's a really good question. And whether it's 179D or the R&D tax credit, there's another one as well that we can talk about, 45L, which is 179D's little brother that grew up to be like 7 foot tall, is never let the tail wag the dog. You do what you do best. But if margins would move the needle here, I think it's wise to look at the margins of, if you were to get this deduction, does it make it now worthwhile to do the government work? And if so, maybe it's something you should look at. Again, I never want to tell anybody their business and, hey, you should be doing this. You do it. We help with tax credits and help people, show it to them, and they can make their decision from there.
I like that attitude. I think the biggest thing, and this was the case with a lot of situations, is more education awareness of what's there to be taken advantage of or available. And this isn't, there's money there that's already allocated for this purpose. It's meant to stimulate and provide assistance to, stoke the fire, so to speak, on projects that are important, on company growth, innovation, all these other things. If we're not leveraging it, what happens to that money? Where does it go?
Where are you today?
I'm in Washington, D.C.
So that money stays right there in D.C.
Yeah.
And we all are well aware of the efficiency and bureaucratic spending. So, I would say if you've got a contractor in Scottsdale or Seattle or whatnot, them spending their tax savings is going to be much better spent than leaving it in the coffers and being spent, accordingly. So.
Got it. So you're basically you're allowing the opportunity for you to reinvest in yourself with that tax savings instead of trusting the government's going to do it, right?
That's right. And, just about any economist, I'm not an economist, obviously. I'm just a lowly lawyer, licensed to practice in California and Texas. And, just about any economist would tell you that, the intent of these deductions are to drive job creation at these companies and, incentivize a certain behavior. It's designed, for example, 179D to incentivize energy efficient building and design. And so we want more people at these companies that can help make those decisions and those designs and propose that to the governments that are building these. On R&D tax credits, the whole legislative intent is to drive technical jobs in the United States rather than outsourcing them overseas. So we want the engineers, we want the designers, we want those folks hired here in the United States. That's the whole legislative intent. And so really, at the end of the day, by availing, and I hate to say taking advantage of these credits, it's availing yourself to these things that are already, legally available to you. By you doing that, you're engaging and fulfilling that legislative intent of availing yourself to these tax dollars that would otherwise be due, ultimately in DC, and hopefully using that money in a way that that does fulfill those legislative intents, is hiring those people, hiring the brainiacs of the world, hiring those folks that are designing energy efficient incentives or energy efficient systems and the like. There is the little brother I mentioned, 45L, or little sister, however you want to think about it. 45L is the energy efficient residential tax credit. And the reason I mention it is that a lot of contractors are finding themselves not only on the building end, but also on the equity end. I've met many, many more general contractors and the like that are equity owners in multifamily developments, and they have a stake now. So really, if you have basis in whether it's a single family or multifamily development, those folks, as long as the home qualifies, are eligible for up to $2,000 per qualifying home. What is a qualifying home? It could be a single or multifamily development. This includes senior living facilities, assisted living facilities, and certain student housing facilities that are 3 stories and under and meet a certain energy efficient criteria. It's a 2006 criteria, so it doesn't need to be windmills on the roof or anything like that.
Right.
So they can be eligible for up to $2,000 per unit. And, your average apartment complex, 100 to 150 units. We have some that are upwards 600 apartments per development. And it's real money. And so $2,000 per each. You're talking about if somebody's building 100 apartments at a time, that's $200,000 in tax credits. And again, the legislative intent there, Mike, is to, we want more energy efficient apartments, and that's to incentivize that.
Yeah, I like that. It's meant to motivate, right? You shouldn't be avoiding it. It should be motivating and driving innovation and creativity, and people, hopefully stoking their creative and entrepreneurial juices to try and do more, right?
That's right. And like I said, it's a 2006 standard. So a lot of folks building to today's standards in certain regions, like whether it's California and complying with Title 24 or other areas like DC has a very high standard. You mentioned that today. Oregon, Washington have very high standards. And also climate zone has a large impact. And so there's a number of climate zones. Some are tougher than others, but we have a team of about 20 building scientists that will dig in and determine whether or not a home can qualify.
That's great information. I think one of the other things that we should mention and discuss is, are there some strategies that companies should be kind of lining up or planning towards to try and take advantage of these? And then also there are things that they should be avoiding.
Avoid procrastination, certainly. And I say that because there are so many folks, and look, I mean, we're great at it. We'll continue to do it, but there's so many folks that will wait until the last minute and then want to take the Indiana Jones approach. Now, the Indiana Jones approach is to wait until you've tripped every trap on the time and the temple's shaking and it's about to fall, and you grab the low-hanging fruit and you make way for the door before the temple falls. That's the Indiana Jones approach. And it works. It works in the movies a lot of times, and it works in real life. But the problem is you leave everything else behind in the temple. Right. And so there's all of that good stuff that are it's usually Indiana Jones sidekicks that usually makes their way out with a little bit more in their pockets. But, is really start now. So we've got clients, for example, where it makes sense to really start their 2022 studies now. So for R&D tax credits, we want to take a slow and methodical process. We want to dig through the time tracking. We want to understand how they're using time tracking. for example. How are they using their system, whether it's Sage or Viewpoint Systems or Timberline, whatever they're using, how are they using it? What's being tracked, and how can we harness that? What projects are under their management right now that we can start digging into? How does it look in 2022 versus 2021? What's changed? And we can start doing that now so that when they're ready to file, even though they may extend or whatnot in 2023, that they're not waiting on these numbers. And we've taken a very methodical approach, not just low-hanging fruit approach, and have gotten every dollar that's meaningful to them.
So is there a checklist somewhere? I mean, how does, obviously you do an analysis, but what does somebody need to understand in order to start taking steps towards doing this properly so they can then leverage these opportunities?
Yeah, we do have internal checklists, certainly. I would say let's have a call, number one, and let's see where you are and, have an assessment, really kind of like a checkup, if you will. Let's check your vitals. Let's check where you are here and really go from there. That would be my first suggestion. And then, understand the timing for next year. And then we back into it as far as our process. And, it's like, when is the test going to be? And let's study for it accordingly. And so that's how we plan it.
Yeah, I like that analogy. So do you have any stories or situations you can share of companies that either leveraged this and really were excited about what they saved? And then also conversely, maybe somebody that missed the deadlines and missed out on an opportunity were frustrated?
I see, I can't even tell you, so many, even very large construction companies. We're talking 500 million a year and up every year that miss out on these tax credits because, right now, revenue is good. And so, thinking about now, nobody's expecting any type of, super contraction or big recession or anything like that. I think the word on the street, and again, I'm no economist, is that there might be a soft recession in the future, and preparing for that wave, preparing for, some of the RFPs to dry up for a little bit. And the best way to prepare is to tighten things up now. The best if you're on a ship, the best way to prepare for a storm is to be ship shape. Have everything in perfect order. The term ship shape, everything has a place. Get tight now. If when you need to batten down the hatches, you don't want to be tripping over stuff. So in the same way, you want to already have a program like the R&D tax credit, like 179D and even 45L. And if you own properties, cost segregation to accelerate depreciation as well. Do start those programs now so that you're prepared when the softening happens, and that you have all of these vehicles to minimize to increase your margins as much as possible and offset any diminution in revenue.
Yeah, I think that's great advice anyway, right? Let's get our house in order, so to speak, is what the message sounds like is coming across.
That's right. That's right.
So what about any stories with, of course, not mentioning to protect the innocent, not mentioning any names, but any stories or situations of companies that kind of missed the boat and really, missed out on a great opportunity because they didn't have their ship in ship shape?
Yeah, I mean, again, it happens all the time. I could tell you, I can count on two hands the number of companies I know, and I know their folks very well. Very large companies, usually, and they don't avail themselves to it. And another thing is a lot of really big construction companies might find themselves in an employee-owned situation, or an ESOP, and there's state credits, or there's state credits available as well. So, for example, like California and Texas will still tax those ESOPs at the state level. So there's you can use the R&D tax credit in those scenarios. But yeah, I can tell you it happens all the time, and it's because they're so big that they think, oh, well, $2 million in deductions couple $100,000 in tax credits, not that big of a deal. But again, times may not always be so good. People might not always be so flush with revenue coming in, and you got to build it in. Plus, it's a stewardship to the rest of the employees as well. Even in an employee-owned situation, that's real money. $200,000 real money. And, if we otherwise just wasted that on a party, for example, at a company, people would be mad, and rightly so. So by not availing yourself to this, it's kind of similar, right? You're wasting money. It's going to DC.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather have a nice party than just send it over to DC.
Yeah. Agreed. And so, there's that. Mike, that happens all the time. And I can tell you I got a call from a CPA the other day, and he said, Brady, now this was on a home builder. So home builders are now, I've been spreading the gospel of tax credits, so to speak, for a lot of home builders as well. And one of their CPAs called me and said, Brady, do you realize our effective tax rate went from 30 some odd percent now down to 19% with these tax credits? Unbelievable. That's a needle mover. That's seismic. And so that's one story that was very recent. Their CPA called me, Brady, I can't believe it. Look at these credits. Look at the effective rate it makes. Now, of course, you get to a certain situation, you have a tentative minimum tax for a lot of taxpayers that they're going to have to pay regardless. But still, moving the needle that much is a really big deal. So that's a great story. And I can't tell you the number of, for example, electrical contractors that are just now finding out about this and now cleaning up on these tax credits. General contractors as well. We've even seen some cases where the general is sharing those benefits, for example, with an architect that they work with very often. So they'll bring each other into jobs, this architecture firm and this general contractor, and they work. And so they've been sharing in a lot of these benefits, for example, on the 179D.
Yeah, lots of great stuff. There's obviously a lot more to it, and we won't take time today to get through all of it, but would encourage our listeners to please give Brady and his team a call and see if they can help you to keep more of your money and also have more available to reinvest in your growth and expanding your operations and accomplishing those goals that you have. So, Brady, what's one thing that you hope the listeners would take away from our conversation today?
Start now, don't procrastinate. And if you want to learn a little bit more about it, you can certainly reach me at brady@brain.com. That's brain with a Y. Also, a big takeaway is Bake 22. And that's B Brain Architecture, Engineering, Construction. So BAEC summit.com. We have our second annual summit in Scottsdale. Mike will be there. And this is primarily designed for the executive and financial leaders of architecture, engineering, construction firms. So there is a phenomenal speaking lineup. We've got folks that are talking about construction compensation, top 10 challenges of building and how to overcome them. We've got folks talking about various tax scenarios, including captives. We've got a number of CPAs and legal folks that are talking about, various issues there. Let's see, a number of great classes, including cybersecurity. That's a huge one. And people wanted to hear more about that. So we've got a number of really great classes, but really, I think that the magic, Mike, I didn't mean for that. The magic, Mike, here is, the magic is folks from architecture, engineering, construction, that full horizontal or vertical, depending on how you look at it, together in one place where they can collab and network. And Mike, these folks, they talk every month. So from last year, we've got civil engineers, we've got architects and engineers and contractors that continue to talk. They'll say they get together monthly to commiserate, but no, they talk about things like talent acquisition, retention, hiring, compensation. How much did you carve out for employee engagement this year? Things like that who else are you going to turn to? And so these folks are talking about that. We had one contractor that said, funny, my staff and his accounting staff have never talked to the accounting staff of an architecture engineering company unless it involves, getting bills settled up.
Right.
It's like, wouldn't it be awesome if we were included in the conversation before the contracts were finalized? And so they start talking, and it's really a beautiful thing.
I love that. I'm excited to join you and your team, and again, encourage any of you who have an opportunity to maybe check that out, maybe join in and even participate. If not, at least reach out to Brady and his team and see if they can help you with your tax credits. I think the last thing, Brady, I want to ask you, what is your superpower?
I would say persistence.
All right.
Yeah, persistence. And it's funny is I've got, I think for me, one of the animals that are most persistent is the, what is it? It's the dragon. What is the name of it? The Komodo dragon. The Komodo dragon. And this guy just hunts and hunts and hunts. And you see they eat goats and things like that. Well, a goat's a lot faster than it, but he's persistent. It's like the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise being always persistent and eventually wins the race. And I would say that's probably my strongest feature is persistence. And even when the going gets tough, to wake up. And I did a podcast recently with a home builder, and he was talking about when everything went to hell in a handbasket. With the last with 2008, 9, and 10, and he said, Brady, well, I got up and I thought, I build houses. I'm going to go build another house. And he built that house, and he built another house, and built two more. And I love that. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to just lay down and just not do anything? You've got to, every day, you've got to hit the ground running and be persistent to your vision and your goals. And to me, that would be my strength and superpower. What about you?
Oh, I would say mine's my positive mental attitude. So I think, optimism.
The eternal optimist. I love it.
Yeah.
That would be a second superpower for me. So
I think so. Well, it's been fun to catch up with you again and get to know you a little bit better. We enjoy these types of conversations. I actually need to have you on. I think we could have another good conversation. So let's schedule something in the future and do this again.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.